Hey everyone, CW Music Reviews here. I am CWD, and this is going to be a music review of the new Death Grips album, Bottomless Pit. Death Grips, if you're not in the know, are a California experimental hip-hop cyberpunk trio, and this is their latest full-length album. I'm a big fan of Death Grips in a way. I got into them a few years ago when I listened to an album called The Money Store. That was a very interesting experience, and that grew on me quickly. Lots of industrial sounds, cyberpunk kind of synths and drums going on, with the rantings and the shouting of frontman MC Ride. And like I said, that was certainly a very visceral and really interesting experience that I felt deserved my attention, as well as every other album that they've dropped, or every project that they've dropped. Their mixtape Ex-Military was excellent. No Love Deep Web was really cool. Government Plates is honestly like the only Death Grips project that I'm slightly disappointed with in a way. They then put out their most standalone and unique project yet, The Powers That Be, a project that separated into two albums, the first of which came out in 2014, the other came out in 2015. And it continued the canon that with each project they not only solidify their sound and really blur the lines between punk, hip-hop, rock, and electronic music, but they also continue to prove that they still have a lot of ideas to contribute to the world of music. And that's exactly what they've done with Bottomless Pit. It's not my favorite Death Grips album they've put out so far, but it's definitely unique. This album's about 13 tracks long, about 39 minutes in length, close to 40 at least. What they've pretty much done is take the aggressive and really ambitious songwriting and outright abrasive production that was on the second half of The Powers That Be, and coupled that with the immediateness and catchiness of an album like The Money Store. There's not really many tracks here that go above the 4-minute length, with the exception of the single Hothead, which is about 4 minutes and 18 seconds in length. The average track here being about 2 to 3 minutes long, and it's not really going to overstay its welcome, nor is it going to leave you undersated or underwhelmed. I do want to get out of the way the lyricism and delivery of MC Ride. For the most part, Ride's pretty much doing his thing vocally. He's doing his shouted stuff as well as his abstract, soft-spokenness that's also very eerie and sinister in a way. Especially on tracks like Eh. He's pretty much stepping into his more less aggressive but all the while alarming vocal delivery, with the exception of a few blips here and there. He also does this on Trash, which was pretty cool. Some of my favorite tracks on the album actually be the ones where Ride isn't screaming his fucking brains out, since, I don't know, I'm just used to this by now, and I was hoping that Ride would like do something a bit more unique. But still, even though I am pretty used to this scream vocal delivery and his overall aggressiveness, I'm still pretty enamored with it, definitely. His lyricism tends to talk about desensitization, death, suicide, a dystopian world. That hasn't changed all that much here either, but it doesn't just remain solid. It also, when you read along to the lyrics when listening to this album, it's kind of like peering into the manifesto of a aggressive and nihilistic cleverbot, as it's interpreting the dystopian world as envisioned by MC Ride. I believe the track 80808 seems to have Ride giving good portions of goat to Bums, but keeping the bones for himself. On Spice, he's jizzing snowmen. One of my favorite noteworthy lines on this album comes from Ring a Bell, where he says, "America, America, now I'm coming Africa, my death is money." So I got no complaints with Ride on his vocal delivery or his lyrics. One thing I think is the most notable about this record, however, is indeed the production and the instrumentation. Nick Reinhardt, who did guitar on Jenny Death, comes back for this album, and it really adds layer and density to this album. Tracks like Giving Bad People Good Ideas, as well as Ring a Bell, Bottomless Pit. There's like this whole layer of guitar that's added to a good chunk of these tracks that I certainly enjoy a lot. But I think the MVP of this album has to be anymore in Flatlander. Tracks like Hothead and Warping and Bubbles Buried in This Jungle have like off-kilter and really blood-pumping synth and just overall sampling that is incredibly overbearing, but not so overbearing that it's like compressed or anything like that. It doesn't like overshadow anything that's going on with this record, certainly. The track Giving Bad People Good Ideas is an example of how far his production game has come. These female vocals, whose name escapes me right now, are mixed so incredibly dissonant and kind of jarring, but in a good way, for the overall instrumentation comes in. This is pretty much Death Grip's most punk variant track to date, certainly. Last beat's going off. This really intense guitar and synth combination. Ride is just really gliding throughout this track incredibly well. So if I did have a complaint, it's that Zach Hill's lack of presence kind of leaves quite a bit to be desired. You do have tracks like Giving Bad People Good Ideas, closing track Bottomless Pit, and moments of Ring a Bell, or maybe some other moments here and there, but it's Flatlander that is definitely at the helm with this album, and that kind of creates disbalance in the sound, especially since previous Death Grips albums in the past, for the most part, tend to demonstrate a lot of balance amongst the three, and that's what made albums like The Money Store and The Powers That Be great albums. Pretty much my favorite tracks on the album are the ones where there's like the most amount of balance amongst all three. Like Trash, which says trash a lot, and it definitely demonstrates Ride's capabilities as both a rapper and also a lyricist. Production is kinda lo-fi-ish. There's these horns that Flatlander bring that really do add a certain off-kilterness to this track, and there's like these electric drum timbres that he'll contribute that kind of remind me of like moments off of the first half of The Powers That Be, but regardless, this is definitely one of my favorite tracks on the album. Pretty much track for track, Death Grips have delivered one cyberpunk banger after another, and I do certainly enjoy this album a lot. I can't say that there's like a whole lot of uniquity in between each track aside from and Trash. In that regard, it does get kind of one-dimensional, as it just gives me intense, aggressive, and abrasive industrial hip-hop track after another, so that's my one issue with the album. But for what it is, I think Death Grips have done it again in terms of quality releases. As a matter of fact, this is probably their most commercial release since The Money Store, which is my favorite Death Grips album. If you are trying to get into Death Grips, then you'll definitely want to get into this, since it's their most immediate and most straightforward release yet. As for me personally, hell yeah, I do like this album a lot. I'm a Death Grips fan. This is a material that is both solid and really delivers quite well. This album is a plus 2.4 and a plus 3. So far this has been a pretty good month for me. I'm definitely pleased with this month thus far, especially with Death Grips, Vector, and Radiohead delivering good albums. Have you given this album a listen? What you think of it? Did you like this album? Did you dislike this album? What was your reasoning for that, and what should I consider listening to and reviewing next? The CWD Music Reviews here, signing off.